Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome to Tightline. We're really glad that you're here with us today. I'm with my new friend Lee. He's a local pastor in our area, and we're going to try today to catch some hybrids and some stripers. We're early season. Typically they run up the rivers and feed right below these dams, and they've just started generating some power below this dam, and we're starting to see some birds dive, see a little bait moving. So we're using baits that look like minnows. I'm using a rattle bait, he's throwing a swim bait, and we're going to see if we can catch some of these early season hybrids and stripers late February in middle Georgia. So you guys stay with us. So what we're doing is we're working this brake line, or working the heavy current, and I couldn't get bit, and I got up here in this brake. Oh, and I caught a spotted bass. Can you believe that? Old bass fisherman, Lee. We can't catch anything but bass. But it's called a spotted bass. It's actually a Kentucky spotted bass, and that's a pretty good one, pound and a half, pound 3/4. And the way you can tell the difference in them and a largemouth, see that little spot right there?
Yeah.
Put your finger on that. It's kind of rough.
Yeah.
That's how you know the difference.
Huh.
That's not what we're looking for, but we'll take him.
It's a fish.
Grow up, buddy. So what we're doing here, this current's really heavy. They're generating, probably got several turbines running. What we did was got behind a little point that causes a break in the current, and these fish, hopefully, they'll sit out in this little bit slack water, and when that bait washes by, they'll run out in that current and hit this bait and then get out of that real heavy current. Now hybrids and stripes are a little different. Sometimes they'll hang out in that heavy current, but this is a pretty high percentage place. And there's a fish just like that. That's a good one too. That's got to be a hybrid or a striper.
All right now.
Come on, Lee. Where you at? Yeah, this is what we're looking for right here, Lee.
I'm just here to help you get them off the hook in case you need them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Come under me right here.
I got you.
I think this is what we're looking for. See that rod, or as you call it, pole?
Hey, they're giving me a hard time.
Alabama, he calls them poles.
They're giving me a hard time because I called it a fishing pole.
What I call a fishing pole is a piece of bamboo with a string on it. But it's either a hybrid or a striper.
All you got is a fancy bamboo thing.
I'm going to dance around you, okay? Alice, I'm going to come over here. He's doing what he wants to do. Hey, I tell you what, if you don't mind getting those baits out of that net for me, and I might let you net this one. That's a pretty good one. I can't tell yet. The water's dingy enough. I can't tell if he's a hybrid or a striper. But he's a pretty decent one, whatever he is. Come on, buddy. Yeah, that's a striper. Look at him. Here we go. I'm going to just stick it halfway in the water. I'm going to put his head right in it. Ready? Thank you, brother. Nice job. All right, so we're going to look at him close and see what he is. Yeah, I think usually the stripers, their stripes are straight. See how that looks? The hybrids will have broken up stripes. They're a little bit wider usually. But he does not want to cooperate. That's the only bad thing about these, you know. Largemouth, that'll paralyze them. These, it doesn't. But I think that's a striper, early season striper up here. We're on a lake called Goat Rock near Columbus. That's about a 5-pounder. And man, they pull good. When you're fishing for hybrids or stripers, they're very current-oriented fish, but what they'll do is they'll use current breaks to ambush the bait. And so what you want to do when you're fishing for hybrids and stripers is look where the current's coming and find something that's breaking that current. Today for us it happened to be a point. Kind of sit behind that point or that rock or whatever and reel your baits behind in the little bit of slack water, and that's typically where those fish are going to sit. You'd think if you could catch them on one side of the break, you could catch them on the other side, you know. Throwing into the slack water and pulling it into the
Theoretically.
Theoretically. These fish don't seem to follow theory very well most of the time. You're in a bad spot too. I set the hook, man. You're gonna be in.
That's all right. Just go with it. Sometimes you gotta take one for the team.
There you go. There he is. That's a good one too. I got another one, Mr. Lee.
Oh, I had a bite just there.
Did you? We got out in this current. I think he's in the same exact place. Golly. He's not that big, but we're in 15-mile-an-hour current out here. And I don't, y'all probably can't tell what I'm doing here, but what I'll do, instead of relying on the drag of these reels, I'll press the button and do what I call thumb the drag, so that they're not going to break my line. So I'll just push the button and let them pull out a little bit. Can you help me with the net, please, sir?
Yes.
I'm going to see. I think it's another striper. He's not a giant, but in this current, he sure feels like it. Golly. Man, they're pretty down there, Lee.
All right.
Here we go. Lee's like, it'd be pretty on the end of my line, too.
Oh, I missed him.
That's all right. I'm going to try to bring his head straight towards you. Awesome. Thank you, sir.
There we go.
We are in the stripers today. Normally, we'd be catching hybrids too, but so far, everything's been a striper. And that J-Well swim bait head, man, it hit it right in the top, just like they're supposed to. The tackle we used today was a J-Will swim bait head by Buckeye Lures, and we used a swimming bait. This one happened to be a Rage Tail Swimmer, but the Cane Thumper by Big Bite Baits also works really, really good. But you need a shad kind of color. And the setup I use is typically a bait casting rod, 7.5 foot medium with a high-speed reel. But that's not to say you can't use spinning tackle also. I have a lot of friends that fish with spinning tackle for hybrids and stripes also. You just have to be a little bit more careful with that light line. So what we did, we were fishing an area in that break, and we didn't get bit, so we got out in the current. Really all we did was change the angle of our presentation. We both got bit. So that's something you can try for a while if you know fish are there. We're gonna let this one go get bigger. Thank you, Lord. Since stripers and hybrids typically live in current, most of the time they're facing into the current. So in my presentation with these baits, I'm going to throw upstream and let that thing kind of come naturally downstream. I'm not going to do a lot of reeling. I'm just going to kind of keep up with it. And most of the time we get the bites on what we call the swing. In other words, when that thing's coming downstream, it goes past you and then turns and starts to come back towards you. For some reason, a lot of times that's when it triggers the strike. And so it's usually a really good thump. You don't have to set real hard, but you always want to be throwing something that'll go with the current real easy, like a bait like this that'll swim without much work. So Lee got on one on the swim bait. Oh, he got him a spot. Whip that spot in here. We're gonna see if Lee knows how to
drop a pole
drop
in the
a rod
water?
in the water.
Yep.
Turn and let our friends see him.
Sorry.
And that's another spotted bass. Show them closely that little spot on the tongue. That's how you can know
Right there.
when they're a spot instead of a hybrid. Good job, brother.
Good deal.
Let him get big. So Lee, tell me a little bit of your story. I know you're a preacher now. Tell me how you came to know Christ and maybe how that kind of led to becoming a preacher.
Yeah, so in high school, I joke around, I haven't always been on Jesus' side. And in high school, I wasn't, well, to give you an illustration, next month is our 10-year reunion for high school.
Okay.
And somebody posted on the Facebook thing, the event, that said, "I can't believe you're a preacher. I can't wait to hear you talk, because you used to use a lot of words that I wouldn't hear a preacher using." But in high school, I was pretty crazy. Then I went to college and decided it was about time I just slow down a little bit.
Okay.
In more ways than one. And so I stopped in high school. I made a lot of money driving cars illegally.
So let's clarify that. You might have raced a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay.
Well, I'm worried about the statute of limitations on this stuff. No, but I about fell off the boat just then again. So I was pretty crazy in high school, street racing and partying and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
And so when I went to college, I decided it was time to slow down. And so I just decided I was going to hang out. And then I had to walk through the Jacksonville Church of Christ's parking lot to get to my classes. And so one day,
And this is Jacksonville, Alabama.
Jacksonville,
right?
Alabama, Jacksonville State University.
Okay.
Yep. And so I had to walk through their parking lot. And one day, one of the members of the marching band there, that was a trumpet player with me, invited me to come to a Bible study. And I went kind of just thinking there's probably some girls at this Bible study more than anything. I wasn't really interested, but I went and started studying and started kind of paying attention to more of, you know, am I going to make a decision to this, and, you know, am I going to actually follow through with this, or is this just something I'm doing just because it's fun to go and hang out with people on a Wednesday night?
Right.
And so February 2nd, 2009 was when I was baptized. And then about a week later, our college minister walked into we had a weekly devotional there at Jacksonville congregation. And for college students, he walked in and said, "You're leading singing." And I said, "Well, I don't know about that." And he said, "You're a music ed major, right?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "You're a Christian, right?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You're leading singing." Handed me a songbook and walked off. And I said, "Okay." So I led singing then. About a month after that, he told me, "You're preaching next week at the Bible study." And I thought, well, that's not going to happen. And he did the same thing. "You're an education major, right?" "Yes." "You're a Christian, right?" "You're preaching next week."
That's awesome.
So he essentially forced me to start. Josh was his name, college minister, Joshua. And so he took me to the preaching school, Memphis School of Preaching. And we went up there one March 2009, about a month after I was baptized.
Wow. So you hadn't been a Christian long before you went to preaching school.
Well, he took me up there to see it, to look around and stuff. And then I started August 2010.
Wow. That's very cool.
But I was speaking and preaching in the meantime at a small church in Anniston, Alabama, that didn't have a preacher at the moment. And so I was filling in over there, and then started full-time when I went to school.
That's awesome, man.
So ever since then.
And you've been a pastor for how long now?
I guess about 10 years.
About 10 years. That's very cool.
Going on 10 years. So it was 2009, February 2009, so about 10 years ago that I was baptized. And then I basically started preaching right after that, about a month later. And then full-time I've been doing it since 2011.
Okay.
So.
And something you get from that story, man, is you just never know, you know, just a simple invite to church or an invite to a Bible study, you never know how that's going to impact somebody's life, you know, and then somebody that gets called into ministry from that one little invite, you know. So it's a big deal to follow through on those kind of things.
So the guy that invited me was named Dalton, and the guy that baptized me and our college minister was Joshua. And so my son's name is Joshua Dalton.
That's very cool.
After them. And those two guys, last time we counted, between the two of them have produced about 20 preachers.
That's awesome.
They just, you know, they see it as a need to not only just get people into the church, but actually teach them how to help the church, you know. So.
That's very cool. That's awesome, man. Well, let's see if we can get out here and catch us another fish. I got to find them again. So what we've done is we've moved up. We tried to get a little bit below the dam, but the current's just so strong here. But sometimes these fish will get in this stuff. So basically what we're doing is just making kind of a controlled drift, semi-controlled drift with this quick current. And I'm going to try to get us over on, there's a point over here. I'm going to try to get us on that break, kind of do the same thing we did on that other side, and and see if I can fish that break. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get us there. Anytime you're fishing below a dam like we were today, you always want to be concerned about safety. If you see a buoy line that says wear your life jacket here, always make sure you do that. There's a reason they put those buoys there. If you were to fall out of your boat in that heavy current, you need to have your life jacket on. Also, you want to watch the water level. Water can go down or come up really fast in those kind of situations. When it's going down, you need to be looking for rocks that can come up or maybe just below the surface. Always be looking out for safety while you're fishing below a dam. When you're below a dam and you hear that siren, we're not being aerated or anything. That means they're fixing to start running the water. Now, we were here earlier and they were running water through, but what that's telling you is if I'm fishing from the bank, I need to be careful because the water's going to have a rapid rise really quickly after the siren. So if you're fishing below the tail race of a dam and you hear that, just be careful. Particularly if you're out on rock islands or something, you need to get back to the bank pretty quickly. But if you can be there when they start pulling the water through, that's typically when the fish turn on too. I think we got him on that actually may be a largemouth. Look at that.
Oh! Come back, come back, come back.
That was the Lee easy release method. So Lee, you're the president of the Columbus chapter of JC's. Tell us a little bit about the JC's and about how you got involved with them.
Yeah, so the JC's stands for Junior Chamber. It's not associated with the Chamber of Commerce, but it basically does the same thing. It was founded in 1920 as a leadership organization for men. Now it's co-ed, of course.
Right.
Columbus was founded in 1941. So we're one of the oldest chapters in the U.S. Still running, but our chapter disbanded in 2015, and then we relaunched it in 2018. So we're technically the same chapter, but we had a few years in there where we weren't doing anything. But basically, we use civic volunteering and projects and things around our city to learn and to train leadership principles to our members. As a preacher, a minister, it's easy for me to sit in my office and not do anything with the city. And it also allows me to do things that the church really just can't do for one reason or another. You know, the church isn't focused on entrepreneurship, but the JCs are. And so we can, you know, they benefit one another. And I can meet people and have relationships in the community. And, you know, that's one of the main reasons why we foster. It's why we're JCs and that sort of thing.
There's a fish.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna let, after this fish quits interrupting us, I'm gonna let you tell us a little bit more about fostering, but
that's fine.
I think this is the kind we're looking for right here. I think this is the kind, and the water just had started running. I started noticing the water running, and this fish kind of thumped it. I don't think it's a real big one, but it feels like a stripe or a hybrid, so. Nope, it's a spot again. That's unbelievable. If Alex and I were in a tournament up here,
and I'm hung up,
we'd have a good limit of spots. I mean, this is a big spot right here. Look at this one.
They made fun of me earlier because I said put it in the bucket, but I think we should put that one in the bucket too. They keep making fun of my Arabisms.
Okay.
They make fun of my Arabisms.
So, that's a spotted bass, and that's about a 2 1/4 pounder. That's much bigger than average. Normally they're 12 inches up here, about 15 ounces. So that's a good one. We may put him in the bucket. Do you ever think about anybody that's been kind of instrumental in your life? They either introduced you to something or they taught you how to do something in your life. I can think about 2 or 3 people in my life that way. One's a lady named Julie Dunaway, and she did something really cool for me. She introduced me to my wife, and one of the best decisions I ever made was to listen to that introduction, and my wife is awesome. We have a great life together. The other couple of people I think about is my dad. My dad is the one that taught me how to fish, took me fishing when I was a little kid, introduced me to catching them on mayflies, and he's the one that kind of lit my fire for the love of fishing. And then there was a man named Buck Smoot that taught me a lot about bass fishing, particularly catching spotted bass on Lake Martin in Alabama. In fact, the first couple times I went fishing with him, I thought my name was Net, because every time I turned around he was going, Net, Net. And I just love thinking about those kind of people that introduced me to new things in my life. And you heard Lee talk a lot today about somebody that was instrumental in his life. First of all, introducing him to Christ, and then encourage him into going into ministry, and the things that he does in ministry now are directly related to the relationship with that person. You know, there's somebody in the Bible that's not mentioned a lot of times, in fact, only a couple of times in the New Testament. His name is Andrew. He's actually Simon Peter's brother. But what I want you guys to do is to be encouraged about what Andrew did in his life. I want to read you a section of scripture from John chapter 1. And it says this, they said, Rabbi, which means teacher, where are you staying? This is John and one other guy asking him this. And this is Jesus. He says, come and you will see. So they went and saw where he was staying, and they spent the day with him. It was about 4 p.m. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. And this is what it says in Scripture. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, we have found the Messiah. And he brought him to Jesus. And that's the quality I want you to see in Andrew, is that the first thing he did, his first reaction was, I'm going to bring this guy to Jesus. The other time you see him mentioned in the Bible is when Jesus fed the 5,000, the miracle of feeding the 5,000. Andrew was the one that brought the little boy with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish to Jesus. You see, every time he's mentioned in the Bible, he's that guy bringing somebody to Jesus. And so my encouragement for you guys today, and to me too, is that I want to catch that Andrew syndrome. I want to be the kind of person who is constantly bringing somebody to Jesus and introducing them to Jesus. And maybe today you've never been introduced to Jesus. Let me tell you how you do that. If you want a relationship with Him, all you got to do is ask Him to forgive you of your sins, tell Him you believe what He did for you on the cross, and ask Him to come and live in your heart and be Lord of your life. Hey, thanks so much for listening today, and you be an Andrew to somebody in your life. Hey guys, what we do at Go Fish Ministries is share the gospel and encourage believers in their walk with Christ. We do this through a variety of events such as wild game dinners, kids camps, men's events, music events, or even if you or someone you know just needs a day on the water. Go Fish Ministries wants to point you toward Jesus and help you know Him better. Contact us through our website. We'd love to serve you any way we can. God bless you, and go fish.
You know, when I look at the tournaments I've won, probably 4 or 5 of the boats that I've won have been on a tube. But I'd completely gotten away from flipping a tube because nobody made one soft enough.
Big Bite has come with this new tour series of baits. The thing that's probably the most unique is when you look at that bait, the salt just rolls out of it. And to me, that is the reason a fish bites a tube and hangs on to it. This isn't one of those let's go out and catch some smallmouth tube. This is a let's get it done tube.
I got you.
What you got there, brother? I think that might be a large head. Come swing.
No, I think it's a spot.
Swing him to me. Swing him to me. Golly, look at these fat spots, man. This is such a bonus. We were hybrid and striper fishing, but to catch fat little spots like that, that's a lot of fun. Good job, brother. So Lee, you mentioned something earlier while we were talking about you and your wife, foster. Tell us a little bit about that and how y'all got into it.
Yep, my wife grew up in foster care, and she's always kind of known she wanted to do it. So about 6 months after we got married, we decided we were going to go ahead and start. We had a family member that was put into care, and so we started the process, and by the time we had finished, we realized we weren't able to take that family member for legal reasons and red tape and things. But so we just started fostering. We have been doing it now for 6 years. We've had 12 placements.
Oh wow!
And I'm blessed to serve as part of the advisory board for Georgia DFACS has regional advisory boards, and so I've been asked to do that. So we've gotten to be a part of foster care and continuing to foster, and then now I'm able to see the back end of it. And so I kind of have a better idea of the hardships that the DFACS workers go through too.
It's definitely a calling, but you know, really, when you read Scripture, it's what we're all called to do. Not necessarily foster, but the Bible says true religion is taking care of widows and orphans.
And you know, I wish that every family could foster. The reality is not every family can for different reasons.
Sure.
But I don't see there being a better way to fulfill James 1:27.
That's right.
Than to foster. Or if you can't foster, be a part of some organization, some group, something that helps the foster system. So there's CASA, which is court-appointed special advocates,
Okay.
that are volunteers that work in the foster system, essentially as a second set of eyes on every case. And usually they're assigned to cases that are a little more difficult.
Gotcha.
But they're volunteers. Every foster family needs a set of families that can provide child care for some nights, because it's nice to be able on Valentine's and things to go out and relax. Every foster family needs, sometimes like the past 2 weeks, thankfully our church ladies have really stepped up and treated it just like a newborn. And so we've gotten food and clothes
That's
and all that
awesome.
stuff delivered. And really and truly, if you can't foster, you can do something like that. You
Absolutely.
can help a foster family, which a lot of people do. And you're partaking in the work, even if you're not the foster family,
Right. Right. So what I've got here, we stopped right on this little point. And this is a little different fish, Lee. I'm going to put him in your lap. This is a white bass.
Oh.
And the white bass, you may know this already, is what they mixed with a striper to make the hybrid.
Oh, okay.
So the native fish in this river, in the Chattahoochee, is this panfish called a white bass.
Neat.
And they bred them with the striper and crossbred them, and then that created the hybrid. So that's why hybrids typically are a little wider. You see how this fish is wider, and the stripers are longer and streamlined.
Wow.
Yep. Got out here in this heavy current and got Lee on one. Of course, when the current's 30 miles an hour, he may be a 2-pounder, but I think he's a little
He
nicer.
feels a little bigger than that.
I think he's a little nicer one. We're gonna get the net out just in case. Now, if he gets close, just kind of let him do his thing, okay? Yeah. And keep that rod up. Whatever you do, don't point the rod at him. That's when they get off. Make sure that rod stays bent.
Circling
That's
around.
a good one right there. This may be the biggest one of the day, and it's definitely a striper. We're catching more striper than hybrids today. Yeah, just bring his head to me. Yeah.
There we go.
Good job, brother.
It's about time you
Look
bit.
at my man. We have had an awesome day. Goat Rock Lake in central Georgia, catching what we would call medium-sized stripers. They're nice ones, but my new friend Lee, man, we've had a great day. I'm gonna let him hold this. And man, I appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And we're gonna put all his information up. If you're interested in anything we've talked about today, just look on the screen and look him up online or call him. And thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Thank y'all for being here. Join us next time.